Oh, hello and welcome to the last and final video of this Smokebomb tutorial series. I'm super happy that you've made it this far, and I hope you have learned a bunch of lessons. And I know it's been long, but I promise in this video you're gonna learn again a few amazing tricks. And actually I'm going to show you how I implemented the effect, but also how I created this blurry effect, as you can see. And this really helped to push the VFX of this smoke bump even further, because we wanted to reduce the amount of sprites that we spawn. And you see too many of these gaps now. So one thing you can do is try to blur it or blend these things. And the best way I could find was to just use a camera depth focus. And then this basically blurs all the rest of it. And you can see the background is basically becoming blurry, which then makes it less obvious, all these gaps. And so I'm going to show you how I did that, but I'm also going to show you how I implemented it. So let's just pop out of it. And before I show you the blueprint, I imported the third person character pack. And if you didn't, then you can still go here and press add, and then add a feature pack, and then just select the third person one and add it to your project. And then it should appear here. You should now have this third person folder. Okay, but let's go back to our blueprint, and I just added a simple actor blueprint. So here, and then I selected actor, and then I called it BP Smokebomb effect. And you can see here I added my effects. And I disabled the auto activate, and that's because I wanted to drag this actor into the level and test the effect of my post process, but I didn't want it to trigger the effect, so therefore I set it automatically on standard on inactive, and then I trigger the activate on begin play. So like you can see here in begin play, I trigger the activate. So now I can just simply drag it in the level, and you can see here we have one in the level, and then I can preview the post processes that kick in, as you can see here. And as you can see, I afterwards added a box collision, and you did see that here as well, these lines. And that helps to set bounds for my post process volumes, and I can now visualize them, and I can also set them. And here on the first post-process one, you can see I set it to use the attached parent bounds. So now it's using the bounds of that box. So it will respect its regions. And then also what you can see here, I set a blend radius of 100. So that means now when the camera enters this cube, you'll see the post-process starts to kick in. But of course for the other post-process, here I'm using depth of field, and it didn't work using the blending. And you can see that here I'm not using the parent bounds anymore, and instead I'm calculating the value based off on camera distance relative to the effect, and then I'm calculating, or I'm subtracting that distance by a range that I set. So in this case it's 4 meters, and then I divide it to set a fall off, so of 1 meter, so 100 centimeters. So that it blends in, and then it is active within the radius of 4 meters, basically. And let me go back to it, or let's first go to this post process and show you my settings here. And it's actually really simple. I only just needed to adjust the post process volume settings a little bit. And first thing I did, I think it's on the lens. I added a bit of chromatic aberration, as you can see here. See? I also added a little bit of bloom, which helps to kick in those white values, so that helps to blend the smoke a bit better. Here nothing's going on, nothing going on here as well. And then within the color grading, I'm not setting any of the temperature, but globally, so for all values, so the dark and the white and all the values in between, I am increasing the saturation, but I'm also adding the gain just a slight little bit. But I found that that was not enough, because within the shadows, the values were still too highly contrasted, and therefore I decreased the contrast a little bit, but I also adjusted the saturation a bit. And then I adjusted the gamma, so everything looks a bit more hazy now. And then in the midtones, I'm not doing anything. Highlights as well, and misc, there's nothing going on. And I think that's basically it for this post-process effect. Yeah, that's that. And so yeah, now we want to animate this one. And well, before we do, here I'm setting the blend weight of this first one to 0. And okay, why do I do this? Well, to initialize it, because I'm previewing it here. Here the blend weight is 1, but when it helps to debug it. But when I spawn the effect, when I'm in gameplay, of course it has to be 0, and then it should start to animate with this timeline. Like you can see here, it goes from 0 to 1 and then stays 1 for a bit and then goes slowly and gradually to 0. And so this is how I'm animating it. You can see here in the update, I then set the blend weight of that post-process volume. But I couldn't do it for this post-process volume, so the DOF. And instead I had to do things differently. And you can see here, I'm grabbing the current settings, so just the settings, this one. And then I'm setting members in that post-process. I'm sorry, there's still an alt node. Actually, yeah, you can just then create these set members. Here, this one. And then you can select the settings that you want to adjust. Say, for example, I don't know, focal region, whatever. And then it's exposed. And then you can also choose to override or and set or whatever. And yeah, I'm just keeping the standard settings like you can see here. And then finally, I just set the settings of my post-process. And yeah, the reason why I had to do it separately is because here I'm only animating the sensor width, not the focal distance, because else this would cause issues. And it would even get worse when I animate the blend weight of this one. Actually, this one is always at 1, and instead I'm just, yeah, only animating the sensor width. Like you can see here, I have a value going from 0 to 1. And this time it's a bit longer active than the other curve. And then I'm using that curve that fits within 0 and 1 ranges, and I relerp it between the value of 0.1 and 350. But you can adjust this one depending on how much blur do you want. And then I have to multiply this with the strength based on, yeah, the camera positions. And so for the sensor width, let's have a look. What we did was we took the character player controller, we took its camera, the camera location, and we took the distance to this Smokebomb effect. And then we wanted to, well, set ranges, right? So that's why I subtracted with 400 centimeters. So now the value is 0 when you're completely close to it or within the 4 meters. And then I also added a soft fall off by dividing it by 100 centimeters. So now when you leave that region after 100 meters, it will, well, it starts then to fade out, and after 100 meters now the value turns to 1, and then I clamp it. But of course now I have to 1 minus it because I have to invert it, because it's when I'm close that I want the value to be 1, and when I'm out of it I want the value to be 0. So therefore I'm 1 minusing it. And then I multiply it, and then indeed this goes into the sensor width. And then the focal distance is basically the distance from the camera towards the player, and then I'm setting this as a distance. So let's just say the camera is 5 meters away from the player, then I want indeed the focal distance to be 5 meters. If it's 3 meters, then I want it to be 3 meters. So like you can see here, I'm taking the controlled pawn, so the character, I'm taking his location, but I try to take the location a bit more on the level of the hips, so a bit more centered. And then I'm taking the distance from the camera, and then I'm always setting this as a focal distance. And yeah, that's basically that for this material. Now, finally, we can start looking into how I implemented it, but that's even more easy. We just have to go to the third person character. Yeah, this one, blueprints, voila. And to be honest, I'm using a debug key. You could also expose an input within your project settings, and then you could use that one, and maybe that's even wiser to do. But yeah, I just set debug key H, and this helps me just to test everything, because I know my role is not always to implement VFX, but to prepare it and be able to test it to see what are the requirements, and then I can pass it over to code. So yeah, that's usually my approach. And so yeah, I take the right vector, so the vector pointing forward for the camera, which sounds a bit weird, but it is like that because the character is, yeah, rotated. And so yeah, I'm taking it forward, well, right, of course, and then I offset it by a half a meter, and then I'm also taking its position, and then I'm adding that offset. And so now I'm spawning the effect right in front of its feet. And yeah, that's it. And because in this blueprint at the end it just destroys the actor, that means now we can just respawn a new one. And yeah, that's what you're seeing here. So let me show you once again. Voila. Okay guys, I hope you really like this tutorial series. If you do, please leave a like. If you can, leave a comment, because I do really like doing these things, but it takes so much effort, and sadly I didn't really get a lot of attention yet. And well, it's not really about getting the attention, but you know, it motivates me to keep going, and I would really appreciate it if you guys show some love when you did watch those. And also, you know, I want to keep making more content and keep giving back to the community. That's just basically the point of it. And if there are some requests, don't worry, you can always ask, and then maybe we see us in the next one, and then maybe I can also fulfill your dreams with your requests. And so yeah, that's that.